What if I told you American presidents spent trillions on hidden wars? Yes, your tax money funded proxy wars globally across decades of leadership. From Ronald Reagan to Joe Biden, every president shaped expensive foreign conflicts. Let's uncover how much each commander-in-chief actually spent behind global battlefields. Ronald Reagan secretly backed Afghan mujahideen through Operation Cyclone, costing nearly $3 billion. That covert funding reshaped Afghanistan, while U.S. taxpayers unknowingly carried the burden. George H.W. Bush inherited Middle East instability, spending billions in Desert Storm. Official combat plus aid spending made taxpayers shoulder enormous Gulf War bills. Bill Clinton's presidency saw proxy-style interventions in Kosovo, Somalia, and Haiti. U.S. military assistance programs and humanitarian missions still drained billions from taxpayers. Then came George W. Bush, with America's most expensive overseas conflicts ever. His wars in Iraq and Afghanistan ultimately cost more than $2 trillion. Proxy programs, training allies, and reconstruction efforts added astronomical taxpayer-funded expenses. Barack Obama emphasized drone strikes and Syrian rebel support, still costing billions. The Syrian crisis alone saw hundreds of millions yearly in assistance packages. Obama also surged in Afghanistan, committing taxpayer trillions across long-term obligations. Donald Trump promised withdrawals, but expanded funding for Ukraine and Syrian proxies. Billions in military aid and operations still drained American taxpayers consistently. Joe Biden inherited Afghan exit chaos, plus Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Under Biden, Congress approved $174 billion for Ukraine through 2025. That's nearly 3% of annual U.S. federal spending allocations. Taxpayers funded arms, humanitarian aid, and financial support for Kiev's defense. Let's compare. Reagan's $3 billion seems tiny versus Biden's massive Ukraine packages. But remember, Reagan's covert spending reshaped decades of global terrorism and instability. Bush-era Iraq costs ballooned to nearly $1.8 trillion. Long-term veterans' care obligations will push that figure even higher soon. Afghanistan remains the costliest, surpassing $2 trillion before the 2021 withdrawal disaster. Imagine the schools, hospitals, and infrastructure those trillions could have funded domestically. Taxpayers paid the price, while presidents justified wars under security and democracy. Each administration passed supplemental bills, often quietly, with little public debate. Did you know hard inquiries into budgets barely reveal classified CIA costs? Covert programs remain hidden, meaning real totals are higher than published numbers. Reagan funneled weapons secretly. Bush openly invaded. Obama used drones strategically. Different methods, same outcome. Taxpayer money fueling wars abroad, not at home. Biden's Ukraine funding is transparent, unlike CIA projects hidden from congressional oversight. Still, Americans often ask, why so much for wars overseas? Annual U.S. outlays reach $6.8 trillion. Ukraine aid equals fractions. But cumulative wars since 2001 cost taxpayers over $5 trillion combined. That includes interest payments, veterans' care, and reconstruction still continuing decades later. Presidents may change, but proxy wars remain a bipartisan, taxpayer-funded tradition. Reagan's Cold War strategies birthed jihadists. Bush's wars destabilized the Middle East. Obama escalated Syria. Trump maintained global presence. Biden doubled down in Europe. Each president defended spending as protecting freedom, while citizens shouldered heavier debts. U.S. debt now surpasses $36 trillion, partly driven by war costs. Economists warn future generations will inherit unpaid bills from proxy conflicts. Your tax dollars not only fight wars, but also finance aftermath. Veterans' benefits, interest payments, and global aid extend far beyond battlefields. For context, U.S. taxpayers spend more on defense than next 10 nations. Yet presidents still justify new proxy wars under national security priorities. Ordinary Americans rarely see how foreign policy choices drain domestic opportunities. Proxy wars are cheaper politically, but financially, they crush national budgets. Remember, Biden's Ukraine spending alone outpaces many U.S. state education budgets combined. Bush's Iraq war bill could have covered universal health care for years. Reagan's Afghan funding indirectly created enemies later fought at higher taxpayer cost. History repeats. Short-term strategies become long-term taxpayer obligations under every presidency. No president escapes the cycle. All contribute to massive proxy spending. Taxpayers deserve transparency on where their hard-earned money truly ends up. Wars abroad might secure influence, but they quietly drain households at home. So next election, ask candidates, how much proxy war spending continue?